Right now, the case against corruption and fraud accused France Hlakudi is scheduled to resume in August. The former Eskom senior manager and others appeared before the Palmridge Specialised Crimes Court last week. They are facing charges relating to a contract of 745 million rand at Eskom's Kusile power station in Mpumalanga between 2014 and 2017. For more on this, we're joined now by former Scopa Chairperson Themba Godi. Thank you very much, Mr. Godi, for your time here on eNCA. Now, firstly, we do know that France Hlakudi before actually even didn't appear in court, and his 300,000 rand bail was actually provisionally withdrawn. This seems to a lot of South Africans that the matters, pertaining to Eskom and corruption, they are not being taken seriously.
Well, it is a bizarre situation where this gentleman, Mr. Hlakudi, who is accused of very serious corruption, seem to approach, this trial like it's a hearing somewhere in a village, at a headman's crawl. As you correctly point out, the 3 postponements that have happened so far has been because of him and his lack of legal representation, which creates in my mind a doubt over whether does he have a full appreciation of what is before him, or is he actually scared to appear before court because he knows he's guilty, and or because there is much more that might come out during the course of the trial.
I don't know if you were privy to listening to Eskom yesterday when they were presenting their performance to the nation. I don't know, how do you rate Andre de Ruyter as CEO, Mr. Godi?
Look, there are 2 elements that unfortunately we are not always able to separate and thoroughly interrogate. Firstly, it is the capabilities of Mr. de Ruyter himself, which I don't think are great. Looking at his history in Nampak and the current deterioration of Eskom. But secondly, there is a policy issue. There is a definite policy decision to do away with coal-fired power station so that there could be an increase in renewables. Eskom is busy tearing down its coal-fired power stations, and de Ruyter is pushing government to allow for more renewables. So on the one hand, Eskom's generation capacity goes down because you want renewables to be brought in, which have not yet been brought in. And so we suffer load shedding. So for me, it's a combination of 2 things. There is no way in which you can fix Eskom by ensuring that the coal that we're selling to Ukraine, to Europe, to China is used to generate electricity in the country, when the policy position of government is that we need to enhance and increase renewables.
I mean, let me give you an example. I'm sure a lot of South Africans did rate him a 0 yesterday when it was announced by Jan Oberholzer, the COO, that we've had 32 days of load shedding this year alone so far, and that is 6 more days compared to the same period last year.
Look, in my view, there should be no civil servant who is fired for incompetence. If de Ruyter can stay in his position for as long as it's done, I'm not sure if there will be any other reason to fire any incompetent person. That's why I'm saying what we're not appreciating and what is not ventilated clearly is the fact that Eskom has to be allowed to break down so that the call could be take it out of government hand because government is failing. So de Ruyter, yes, he's not a good leader, but at the same time, he's failing because the objective is he must let Eskom fail so that it can move towards being privatized. So I don't want his failures to be looked at in isolation. There is a context that says rather sell coal to Europe and China. I don't know whether they're going to pave roads with them there or what, but what I know, they're going to ban them to generate electricity. But we in South Africa who own the coal should not use them to generate electricity. And so Eskom currently has a lot of coal-fired power stations, and these are the ones that are being broken down so that we can depend on wind and sun. And as far as I know, there is no country in the world that runs its economy, its electricity on renewables. It's always a mixture with a good balance of what is reliable, what is known to work, and what is new technology.
And Mr. Godi, he's not the only one that's failing, is he? What about those in the Public Enterprises Ministry?
Well, I must say that as you should be aware, yesterday we in the APC marched to union buildings demanding that there should be political accountability, because when you have a public entity, it reports to a political office, and when it fails, the political office must intervene. If it doesn't intervene, it means that they are part of the failure. And with Eskom, we've had this load shedding challenge for years now, and apparently no one is able to put a stop to it. And the Minister of Public Enterprises is missing in action. He's not there. He's not in the forefront, giving direction and assuring the nation, putting timelines. So, I mean, we don't want to make load shedding a new normal in our lives when we have such huge quantities of coal in the country. So Pravin Gordhan, from what I'm gathering, seemed to be a law unto himself within the ANC. Nobody can touch him. And so he does as he does. I mean, you have seen with the SAA saga, where he has sold the stake at SAA without any transparency, without even involving National Treasury, as is required by the law. And right now we can see that Transnet is also on its way, and there's no accountability. So yes, that Ministry of Public Enterprises, especially the minister, has to take, there is no way in which anybody can stand up and defend Pravin Gordhan, whatever might have been done in the past. But insofar as Eskom is concerned, no, he has failed the country terribly.
I mean, yesterday, the CEO, Andre de Ruyter, saying that, even last week, actually, saying Kusile is one of their worst performing, as well as Tutuga. Those are all in Mpumalanga. Then yesterday, regurgitating on that and saying that Mpumalanga is a problem to Eskom. They need law enforcement to come in and assist them because of the corruption that takes place there. I'm interested to know how bad it is in Mpumalanga with those 12 substations, especially during the time that you were Scopa Chair. Was there no political willingness and law enforcement willingness to sort things out in Mpumalanga?
Well, look, Mpumalanga is where you get most of the coal in South, especially the area around the Highveld. And when you talk about lawlessness, yes, I've seen this report by the Ruyter, that there are syndicates, there are also companies that supply coal that has stones and metal objects. And for me, it is a question of management and law enforcement. I don't think that it is as bad as it's being made out to be, except that it has been allowed to be like that, because it's not as if this has been a way of life. I mean, Mpumalanga is not Italy. You don't have a mafia, so to speak. But it is a question of allowing things to rot and then coming around and saying, look, we can't fix this. The only way we can fix this is to sell it off. Eskom is a state entity. There is no way in which criminals can hold a state company as critical as Eskom to ransom, and then we only just raise our hands in the air and say, well, there's nothing we can do. It's a question of, is there willingness to deal with these things, or are these syndicates actually linked to senior government officials? Because he claims that when those syndicates are arrested, they get released the following day. I mean, this is shocking. It's Banana Republic stuff. How do we even have that? How do we have that?
What were the stumbling blocks for you, Mr. Godi, when you were Scopa Chair, in trying to get answers when it comes to those coal power stations in Mpumalanga? Because, you know, we're still hearing the same story today.
Well, look, you know, our mandate as Scopa was a bit narrow, because you look at the financials and things that affect the balance sheet of Eskom, looking at the reports of the Auditor General. Yes, we engaged with the Tegeta issue after a report by one auditing firm. No, you know, Eskom is a sprawling enterprise with billions and billions of rands of turnover and profits. you deal with this particular issue, say, even if it's 500 billion rands, it's still a drop vis-a-vis what is there in the company. We spent a lot of time, especially around the Tegeta issue and all the related issues around contracting. That's what we were dealing with. We were able to get answers because we called them, we went to their offices. I don't know what parliamentary oversight is doing right now in terms of following up on these issues now that the reports are out around Kusile. You know that we have had billions of rands of overruns on Kusile. How then does it not perform? When so many billions have been spent in constructing it? Who were the companies that were contracted? We know there's an ANC company that was a joint venture with the Japanese Hitachi. I understand that part of what they were doing there has been badly done and has to be redone at a cost to Eskom. Why not at the cost to the companies that did that? So I think there's a governance issue. It's one thing to complain, but it's quite another to demonstrate leadership by attending to those problems, because in the first instance, that's why you're there as management, to solve problems, not to complain about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what this new executive and board has been brought in to do. But, to be honest, Mr. Godi, South Africans are not seeing the results of that. But thank you very much for engaging with us here on All Angles.